What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All-NBA show powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/All-NBA. I'm your host, Adam Mares. I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Tim Legler. Legs, I take people behind the curtain. We'll kind of talk about the show. We obviously prepare for it, send notes and different things, but we get on here, and you said something that's my favorite thing. I said, the games were good last night, not great. I got a couple notes. How you doing? And you said, I've got a lot of takes on these games last night. It's going to be a great one.
Absolutely, man. I was really entertained by both of those games. And some things came a little bit clearer into focus for me last night about some things. That's what I'm looking about.
That's what I wanted to hear, man. That's what I wanted to hear. I thought one game was great. Obviously, Heat Magic was a great one. Knicks Raptors, a bit of a blowout after the first quarter, but interesting things nonetheless. We're going to talk about both Cup games. We're also going to preview the upcoming Cup games, and we're going to look at our Western Conference predictions from earlier in the season, in the preseason, and we're going to see how we stacked up. But let's start with these games last night at the NBA Cup. The first one, the Knicks get the win over the Raptors. Close game through one quarter. 35-39 Toronto, but it was a 34-13 second quarter that opened up a huge lead for the Knicks that they would never look back on. In fact, one of the things that stood out to me about this one, Legs, was that when the Knicks got up big, like 20 points, every time the Raptors would cut it to 13, 11, 12, the Knicks had a run. So they never let it get one run away. They always kept them at arm's length, and I thought that was very impressive. But if we break down this game, what was it that stood out to you?
Well, I think first I'll start with this, with the big statement of the night, which is that's the Knicks team that can get to the finals, and don't know if they can beat Oklahoma City because I don't know if anybody can, but that would be one of the versions I've seen in this league that could play with them. That, to me, is what the Knicks are at their best, because they had a combination of the two things last night. They had moments where they got really humming offensively. Brunson obviously was incredible to start the game. Again, shows you what a big game player he is. Because this and I love the fact, first of all, these guys are so dialed into the Cup. It was obvious to me in both games. The intensity level in the arenas, the environment was sensational. The enthusiasm on the bench, everybody from the opening tip on, it clearly meant more than any game these guys have played this season, both of these games. And it will be the same again tonight. That was great. And because of that, Brunson elevated his game, came out, cheated this playoff game, and man, was he sensational. Set the tone for his team. When your best player shows up and he's in that kind of space, it's amazing how confident you become as a group, because you're like, okay, this dude's here tonight. We're in good shape. But then it was more than that. It was across the board, the contributions from everybody. It was the physical defense at times where they were contesting everything at the rim, the activity level defensively, which is not something I love about the Knicks every night I watch them. Some nights it's all about their offense. This was like a no balance of the two. So I was super impressed with contributions up and down their roster, the defensive activity level, and, of course, Brunson doing what he typically does in big spots, which is just come out and put everybody back early and operate in a space that, guys can, when there's a little bit added pressure put on you. He loves that stage, and he showed it again last night. So I was super impressed overall with the Knicks top to bottom in this game.
I agree with you about the big game thing. Real quick, Legs, you might want to try unplugging and plugging back in your mic because it seems to be skipping there for something going on with it. But I love your point about Jalen Brunson. 35 points last night, 13 of 19, 6 of 9 from three, and he was fantastic. Even the intensity you're talking about, he was jawing at some people in the crowd early on in the game or throughout the game, which I kind of love. Just kind of showing the extra intensity that was brought to the game. But this is the thing about Jalen Brunson, man, big game player. And you're right that last night, the Raptors, who have some great perimeter defenders, some guys that can really stick you, they didn't have an answer for him. And he carried himself as such. And that's part of what stood out to me is that there's something too when your best player has just the presence of Jalen Brunson in a big game. And that certainly stood out. The other thing that stood out to me was once the Knicks seized control of this game, I thought they sped up the Raptors. And I thought the Raptors were playing a half rhythm too quick all night, just trying to figure something out, getting frustrated and just off rhythm. And I thought it was the Knicks' defense that sort of kept them off balance, obviously holding them to 101 points. But I thought that part also stood out, that the Raptors just never found a groove where it felt like a possession was easy.
No, very, very true. And I want to, first of all, before I talk about that, let's talk about Brunson real quick. One of the things that Toronto didn't have or didn't utilize enough is size on him. I'm not saying that's the definitive answer, but I will tell you this. If he gets dudes that are like 6'4" and under on him, he absolutely destroys those guys. The two types of players you can't play on him are guys that are 6'4" and under or young players. So, for instance, you even got Murray Boyles, who's 6'7". He's a rookie. So you can't, because he's going to bait you on all the calls, the head fakes,
Right.
the step backs. He gets you up in the air and he's going to draw fouls. He's going to get every call on the drive if there's contact against a young player. So they're running out there. Jamal Shed, who's like a really good defender. I mean, he played at an incredible level defensively in college. That's how he made his reputation. He's 6'1". You can't play guys that size against Jalen Brunson. You just can't. He's too physical. He's too big. His footwork's too good. And he's going to eat you alive. I mean, he even ate a guy like Nembhard alive when they played him in the playoffs a couple of years ago, who's another guy you go, man, that's an elite defender, 6'4", 6'5". It's not big enough. They put Scotty Barnes on him a few possessions, but not enough. And even those, Brunson kind of got good looks, and he missed. But they didn't put him on him enough. Maybe they didn't want to get Barnes in foul trouble. I don't know. But that's one thing I took away from this game. Like, you better have a certain personnel package to be able to throw at him, or he's going to do what he did last night regularly in a course of a series. But yeah, for Toronto, they had a hard time. And I credit, more than anything, I credit like the Knicks being up on their toes in a state of readiness defensively. They were all over it. And it was all of those guys, Bridges and Anunoby, Hart. Yep. I thought Cat was very, very active defensively in this game on a night when he didn't have a great offensive game, but his physicality was there, his rim protection. He was active and present defensively. So I was just impressed up and down the roster, how hard they played and how they competed. I thought that was the biggest issue for Toronto, more so than looking at them and saying they've got shortcomings.
I think, and you look at it, they go back to their old starting lineup here over these last 3 games. Anunoby, Bridges, Brunson, Hart, Towns. Actually, I guess 2 out of the last 3. Towns missed 1. And that's the lineup we're obviously familiar with, with them. And I think what you saw and what you're kind of referring to about last night was there is a familiarity of how they play off of each other, especially on the defensive end, that I thought stood out last night, because everything seemed like it was in concert. And that's why it was such a clash to me, is Toronto looked sped up. They looked off rhythm. I thought the Knicks, especially defensively, looked on rhythm all night.
They did. And I think, look, my mic back on here. I'm having some issues with my mic here. I unplugged it twice. I don't know. Maybe I have to reboot completely, go off the air for a few minutes if you want me to. I don't know. Because I can't tell you.
You're coming through your computer, but it sounds fine enough for me for the show today.
Okay. All right. So that's the thing that's always been like kind of the question for me about the Knicks is like, you put it all together on the same night. What does it look like? And look, you look at the East right now, and Detroit got so much of the early attention. They jumped out of the gate. They were so hot. They had the long winning streak, coming off of last year, and everybody had high expectations. And we were like, okay, man, like Detroit's here. Like, this could be a team potentially conference finals maybe in the East. And the Knicks, they were a little bit slower out of the gate, adjusting to a new coach, new rhythm, changing some things offensively. So on the nights it didn't work, getting more scrutiny, I felt like. Here you go. You look up, they're 17-7, 2 games back of the Pistons team that had this incredibly hot start. And the Knicks now, 4 in a row, 8 out of 10, like they're now rounding into form. We said going into the year, the path was cleared because of what happened with Jason Tatum, Tyrese Halliburton. The path was cleared. Who was going to grab it? And the New York Knicks are showing you right now that they think that this is going to be their year. And they looked great last night. I was impressed because Toronto played incredibly hard. They just didn't have enough. They did not have enough to guard the Knicks, and they didn't have enough to be able to operate against the Knicks and what New York was doing to them defensively. So great night for them.
Yeah, they've won now 8 of their last 9. I mean, a lot of those are against some lower level teams. 2 of those are against Toronto, and they did get a win over the Magic, which is a big time win. And then they beat up some of the dregs of the East. But nonetheless, that's a nice little rhythm that they have going. So what else about it for the Knicks? Obviously, Jalen Brunson, and he was pretty unstoppable last night in his minutes. But what else stood out to you?
Well, I just think that for me, people that early in the year, there was some different returns, I think, on what you were seeing out of Mike Brown. And there was a lot of people comparing it to Tibbs and everything else. I think what I saw last night was a team that, their chemistry, their look, their buying in factor was all there. And I don't know what more you can say about him. There is a couple things. I was watching the game and I'm thinking to myself, what would I do against the Knicks team if they get rolling like that and Brunson is in this incredible rhythm and it looks like they're on one of those nights where playing to their ceiling. And this situation came up in the game when they fouled Mitchell Robinson a couple of times intentionally. I don't know why. So to me, you either buy into that mentality or you don't. I don't know about this. Well, we're going to do it a couple of times, but we're not, for the most part, it's almost like it was an afterthought going into the game. That would be something at the forefront of my thinking playing the Knicks. Now, not necessarily if you feel like you've got Brunson contained, but if he comes out and he gets into that kind of a rhythm, how do you disrupt their rhythm? You take possessions where he doesn't have the ball. Now, here's the thing about it. I'm not saying I'm a believer all the time and immediately fouling a guy when he steps on the court like Mitchell Robinson, who's going to go to the line, at best make 1 out of 2, most times miss both. Because there are some risks associated with it. One is you put your own team in a penalty so fast that now how do you guard Brunson? Because you just used up 3 fouls on Mitchell Robinson. Now you got to guard Jalen Brunson. You can't touch him, right? Here's the thing. I would do it if it was the last 4 minutes of a quarter, because by that time you're probably already in the bonus. If Mitchell Robinson's on the floor, that's a good time to do it because you're not going out of your way to put your team in the penalty. They're probably already there. 3 fouls, 4 fouls by that point. A lot of teams are in the bonus with 4 minutes to go in a quarter. So selectively do it. But once you commit to it, commit to it. And I didn't think Toronto really did that in this game. The other thing that was bore out last night, Adam, was his misses are so flat and they come back with such a ricochet effect. They got 2 of those back that led to 6 points. So, and that's just, what's a bigger backbreaker than that? You foul him, he goes to the line, he misses the second one, he comes off so hard, they get the rebound, they kick it out, somebody hits a 3. So you got to be protective of the long rebound. But that was something I just kind of noticed. I think I would utilize that more because he's such a factor for them with his offensive rebounding and his defensive presence. Maybe that's something to disrupt their offensive flow and also make you consider taking them off the floor. But commit to it or not. And I felt like Toronto was in that in-between area last night.
It kind of makes sense when we talk about teams. I mean, it's one of the big advantages, a team that just knows who they are versus a team that's discovering who they are. The Raptors are a great story this year, but still discovering who they are in large part. And when you look at the Knicks, Josh Hart does exactly what he set out to do. 2 steals, 4 assists, 6 rebounds. He hit 4 threes last night, which is a huge X factor for them when he's making his shots. 4 of 7. They're a different team. But then Mitchell Robinson, what's your job? Offensive rebound, second chance points. He goes out and does it every single night. OG Anunoby knows his job. The guys that play rotation minutes know their job. Jordan Clarkson off the bench, he knows his job, and that's an advantage. And then when you go to the Toronto side, when I talk about being off rhythm, at their best, there you kind of see what they are. Shed gets into the paint. He makes some great plays. He kind of did that last night, but was not very efficient. Brandon Ingram scores an ISO, one of the prettiest ISO scores in the league. But you still are trying to figure out, what the rhythm is when things get tough, and that's why these games are important for a team like Toronto. But they get blown out because I don't think they quite know who they are. On the other side with Toronto, Brandon Ingram, 31 points on 11 of 18 shooting, 3 of 5 from 3, 6 assists. Watching him last night, I don't know if you feel this way, because I don't always love his decision-making and rhythm. More importantly, I don't always love his rhythm. He sometimes feels like he is not going full speed. I thought he was going full speed last night. He has one of the prettiest games, just aesthetically pleasing. Like, I love his footwork. I love everything he does. I love his high release. He shoots the ball like as high above his head as he could possibly get it. His game is just silky smooth. For rather effective or whatever. It's often effective, but his game is just so pretty to watch.
So I'm glad you started there, because that's what I said before we came on the air. I told you I wanted to take this back to 2016. Going into that draft, I was big on saying I'd take Ingram 1. And not a lot of people were, because Ben Simmons was
Over
out there.
Simmons, yep.
Exactly. Ben Simmons was out there, and it looked like that was kind of the guy. And based on what you'd seen out of Simmons to that point, there's no doubt he was a physical specimen at 6'10" with that kind of up the floor speed, and defensive abilities. Like, that's kind of and his playmaking. Like, everybody's like, man. Now, I didn't agree with Philly making him a point guard out of the gate. I thought that was a mistake, but they did it. Now, here's my question for you, because I said it on the air, and there wasn't a lot of people saying it at the time, but I said I would really strongly consider taking Brandon Ingram with the first pick, because 6'11", with that kind of handle mid-range ability, like, that is something you need in the NBA, the mid-range answer. Like, not really a great scheme or personnel you can come up with to guard that. 6'11" can handle it with a lean back on his shot, like, gets it off when he wants. So I'm looking at Brandon Ingram. What I was thinking about last night watching him play, number one, I agree with you. I love watching him, just physically watching the guy play, because he's so smooth and talented, and he's like silky with that mid-range jumper. So now here we are, right? Whatever, 9 years later, coming up on 10 years later. Do you think now, did it bear out that Brandon Ingram, right, has had a better career? Now, it's debatable, because Simmons had those years in Philly, man.
Really good years,
Really good years, man. All defense and all-star. And I'm trying to think, did he make an all-league team? I believe he did at some point. And then you got Brandon Ingram, who, I looked it up, like in his first 9 years of his career prior to this season, because he's been pretty healthy this year, he averaged 55 games a year. That's his career average in 9 years. You think about how much basketball we didn't get to see him play because of injuries. And I'm looking at this guy last night, I'm thinking, number one, man, I wish he had just stayed healthy, because I think it would blow that debate out of then it wouldn't be debatable. It would clearly be Brandon Ingram, right? Because now you kind of go, well, I don't know. I mean, Simmons at his best did give Philadelphia something, but yet he's out of the league. And he's really been out of the league for the last 3 or 4 years, really. And now you got Brandon Ingram still able to do this on a good team, drive their offense. So that's what I was thinking about watching the game. Man, I wish this guy had been healthy his entire career, because he's so fun to watch when he is healthy. And I hope he stays healthy all year, because it makes Toronto infinitely more interesting than before they got him.
It's almost, I was thinking about this too last night when I was watching him, that it's almost the perfect situation for him, in that I wonder about Ingram as your number one guy, in large part because of intangible stuff, not because of the talent, but just, can he lead your team? Is he a guy that, like we talked about last night, Jalen Brunson carries himself and plays with a certain intensity that everybody else just is like, we're going in the foxhole with that guy, because we know, I'm going to bet on that guy. Ingram doesn't always have that. He's got a nonchalance to him. Even his game is very smooth and everything about him, but he's on a team right now where he doesn't have to be the traditional number one guy the way Jalen Brunson does. Everyone stand around and watch. You got a bunch of guys attacking, and Brandon Ingram is the greatest amongst equals, I guess, amongst those guys. So it's kind of a good setup for him. I just don't know. The question is going to be, though, how does the team handle these moments, because they haven't been in them enough? Big games, what does it look like? And I thought it was an unimpressive example of that right now, but they have 60 games to kind of figure it out. But Scotty Barnes, I thought, struggled last night. I thought he looked rough and off rhythm. I thought Mamu looked off rhythm and a little out of place. Grady Dick in his limited minutes looked out of place. And that's the kind of thing I just look at is, okay, Brandon Ingram was able to do what he does and score, get to his spots and elevate and score. But a lot of the other things that are the engine of your team, big pieces to me look like this game, the speed, this intensity was something they're going to have to grow into throughout the course of the year.
I totally agree with that. And look, at your point about Brandon Ingram as your number one is valid. Look, but this is all they have. So as their number one, it's pretty good. If you look at the list of guys that, go around the entire league and you go, okay, this is my number one that team currently has, and that's good enough to do what? To contend? That list is shorter than you think. So for me, without him, this is a team, and a lot of my skepticism about their team going into the year was because I didn't fully buy into his availability, durability, right? Because he hasn't really shown that throughout his career. Now, he's been healthy all year, and he's showing you what he's capable of doing. And last night, stakes were raised against a team that played really, really well, almost like to their ceiling, and he was able to do what he did and operate the way he did against that team. Shows you the talent is there. But you're right. I mean, but I think that list of guys that you would say, okay, number one, you got a real shot that this is your number one is a short list. So he might be on that next tier of guys. If you've got the right people around him, a defensive-minded team, a couple of nice pieces as the 2 and 3 for supplemental offense, then I think that's pretty good. You're going to be a solid team in this league, and that's really what they are. No more than that. I do want to. You mentioned the name, so I want to bring it up. Like, I'm sitting there watching the game, and I'm just like, man, and I've already been paying attention to this throughout the year, but Grady Dick, like,
kind of a bit role. Yeah.
What in the world? And by the way, he looked completely uncomfortable when he was on the floor.
Yeah,
I mean, he just didn't look, and as you would expect, he's lost confidence. He's lost rhythm. He knows by the sheer numbers, and that starts with playing time, you've lost the confidence of your coaching staff and probably of your teammates now. And he's been leapfrogged by guys that are playing more minutes, right? Murray Boyles, Jacoby Walter, like these guys have now passed him. And I'm looking at Grady Dick and I'm going, man, because last year, he wasn't efficient. He was 41 from the field, 35 from the three. That's not good enough for like a two guard in this league. You got to have better shooting numbers than that. But he did have nights. He plays with relentless energy. He cuts, he runs. His hair's on fire, flopping all around with that blonde hair. Like, you're like, man, this guy's all over the place. Now it's like, what is he to this team? Because even there was a play last night that was so telling to me, and it won't even show up on his stat sheet. They had a 3-on-1, and Pirtle ended up with the ball in the middle of the floor. And he crosses half court, and Grady Dick ran the right wing, and he ran to the right corner, and he's got his feet set, his hands out in front of him, and it was an obvious, especially for a center going to his strong hand, that's the easiest kick in the world. It's right in front of you. Kick the ball to the right corner. Pirtle picks it up, jumps in the air, and throws it back to the other side of the floor, proceeds to run over someone, so it's an offensive foul, and he threw the ball away anyway. And Grady Dick was just standing there, and after the play, the whistle blew, he just kind of stood there for like several seconds with his hands down by his side, kind of like almost like, I can't believe this is what's happened to me right now. Like, so I felt kind of bad for him. But look, they're winning, so obviously they've made choices that it's working for their team. But what does that mean for Grady Dick's future? Because last year I watched him, I thought, this guy can be like a nice player. He's not going to be a star, but certainly can be a nice player for somebody, and it seems like an afterthought now to the Raptors.
I definitely had that same thought. And he barely played, by the way, 8 minutes, and that's in line with, I think, where he's at in the pecking order right now as this team is finding their identity. And you even saw Darko reaching for guys to play last night, just trying to figure somebody that can give them an extra minutes. They basically played a 8-man rotation, and we're just looking for somebody else. Jacoby Walter hit a couple threes that was big, and they needed it. I'm going to ask you a question about the Raptors that I'm going to ask you later on about the Miami Heat. They were 2.5 weeks ago, they were 14-5. They have lost 6 of their last 7 games, including 2 to Charlotte, 2 to New York. Also losses in there to LA and to Boston. So some good teams other than the Charlotte Hornets, who they lost to twice. Has the league figured them out? Are they an example of a team that got off to a good start, had a unique personality, somewhat new personality, but now teams have adjusted and they've lost their fastball?
Well, and look, I'm not one to clap back at people. So, sometimes I do, but like in this case, people came at me pretty hard when they won
Oh,
nine
no.
straight.
Oh,
When they
no.
won nine straight, people in Toronto, north of the border, were coming at me pretty hard. And I
Yeah.
said, okay, hey, look, they look really good. Ingram's healthy. That was a big question for me. They absolutely, they look like a team now that's like, this is a tough team to play every night. And I'm not saying now that they've lost 6 out of 7 and had some bad losses. I'm going to go, oh, I told you so. I'm not doing that either, because they are better ultimately than what I thought they would be going into the season. But I do think this is a team that still has limitations on their roster. And I think there are some guys that are going to be very inconsistent for them from night to night. So ultimately, are they better than what I thought they would be, which was like a 10-11 seed? Probably, yes. Like, and that means 500 or better. I think they probably will end up there. But it's not as if during that 9-game winning streak, I was watching them thinking, "Oh, watch out East! Like there's a new team in the
Sure.
mix here." I wasn't. I never got ahead of myself in that regard. They were playing really good basketball. And even during that stretch, you got to look at schedule. They had wins against Brooklyn, Indiana,
Yeah.
Charlotte, Washington, Brooklyn.
Yeah.
5 of the 9 I just mentioned are like bottom feeder teams. So you do have to weigh that. They're better than I thought because of the Ingram factor, and some other guys have stepped it up. But ultimately, kind of a team that's going to be in that middle of the pack, 500-ish or a little bit above that, and most likely play somebody significantly better than them in the first round of the playoffs if they get there.
Nobody's had a weirder season if you think about it. They start 1-4, so they lose 4 of their first 5 games. Then they win 12 of their next 13, and then they've lost 6 of their last 7. So 2 giant losing streaks, sandwiching a huge win streak. Just try to make sense of that. The last thing I have for you, though, Legs, I was thinking about this, and I should have asked you before, like on Monday's show, about the Cup and who would benefit the most from a win. I think after last night, it's the New York Knicks, because their season has been somewhat rocky, but it's almost disguised. They're 17-7 now. That's a good record. Plus 8.6 point differential on average. Second in the Eastern Conference with a 2-game cushion over the third seeded Boston Celtics. They're a team that has kind of quietly been, they up and down, rocky start. Are they as good as they have been at the upside here? 17-7. You win this tournament, you go to 19-7. We're back on. Knicks going to the finals. We're back on with them being right there as the team you probably are predicting or at least expect.
Well, I think we had this conversation, who would benefit the most, and I think there was a number of teams in the mix. I think the only 2 that I just didn't see any benefit at all really was Oklahoma City and the Lakers. I don't think that, to me, was going to say anything differently about what you believe about those teams. I think you could make a case for all of the other teams. San Antonio, I think, would have been a significant one, particularly if Wemby comes back, plays, and they're able to do that with this young team. They're ahead of the curve, clearly. You win something like that, particularly, that would mean probably going through Oklahoma City to do it. That could be a massive confidence builder for that group. And then I still think, looking at the Eastern Conference, I would say more than the Knicks, I would say the Orlando Magic.
Ooh, all right.
Particularly,
Well,
particularly doing it without Wagner. Like if they're
yeah.
able to somehow, and I don't think they're going to, but if they were
Yeah, I
somehow
don't either.
able to do that, like if they're now able to beat the Knicks and even get to the championship without Wagner, that would be something, man. So I think those are the 2 teams probably I would say mean the most to San Antonio or the Orlando Magic. But you're right. Look, when the Knicks haven't been there, they haven't, this team we've been talking about since the day they got Brunson, but they haven't been to the finals. They haven't, been on that stage. They haven't really come close to winning it. That might be something you go, okay, well, at least we got this trophy. Now, like, it does build belief for a team like that that's trying to get through that next threshold. So I think there's validity to what you said about them.
All right. Well, we got to get to them then on the other side, as they have advanced as well with a win over the Miami Heat. So we'll take a break right here. And then later on in the show, we are going to look at our Western Conference predictions and go through and say whose ceiling is maybe higher than we anticipated. All of that and more on the other side. But first, if you're a last-minute shopper, and you probably are if you're watching the show, you know the feeling. Shelves are empty and ideas are running low. Aura Frames is the solution with a gift that feels personal. I know our demographic on this show. I know the type of person that's listening to it. It's a lot of different types of people, but I know most of them probably are looking for gifts that they want to buy for somebody special in their lives. And I'm telling you, this is the best place you can check out because these are picture frames that you can put around the house. They look exactly like picture frames, but they are digital photos that you can upload. You can swipe through. People can come to your house and you can pick up the picture frame and just swipe through and look at all the different photos that are on that frame. It's really cool. It also can play videos. So maybe you upload a video that's a great memory that you could play. And what's great is it's all controlled from your app. So there's an app you put on your phone and you could upload photos. So even if you're out like at a sports event watching your kid play, you snap a great photo, immediately by the time you get home, you could have that up on your Aura frame. If you have guests coming over, you can put photos up of them. It's an incredible thing, really high quality. And on top of that, you can preload photos before it ships. That way you don't have to open up the packaging before Christmas. The package comes in, you wrap it up, and you know when they open it, it's already going to have the photo that you selected. You can personalize your gift, and they even have a gift box included. Every frame comes packaged in a premium gift box with no price tag. You can't wrap togetherness, but you can frame it. For a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting Aura Frames to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames, named number one by Wirecutter, by using promo code ALLNBA at checkout. That's AURAFRAMES.com. Promo code ALLNBA. This deal is exclusive to listeners, and frames sell out fast. So order yours now to get it in time for the holidays. I think you have another week or so if you order that'll come in before Christmas. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. Also want to tell you about the presenting sponsor of the show, FanDuel. Even if you missed the start of a game and want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. However you want to play, now is the perfect time to join because FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/AllNBA to sign up today. That's FanDuel.com/AllNBA. Play your game with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Must be 21 or older and present in select states. For Kansas in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in D.C. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. All right, back here, segment 2 of the All-NBA show. Make sure you hit that like button for us if you're enjoying. Be subscribed to the channel so you never miss one of the episodes. All right, now we're going to go to our FanDuel game breakdown. Every show we try to break down the actual games. This one was the one that I thought was most interesting, Legs, as the Magic get the win 117-108. And I turned on this game, and it starts out 15-0 Miami. An absolutely atrocious start for Orlando. An incredible start for Miami, who was playing in transition every single time. The Magic had to call a timeout. Coming out of the timeout, they still couldn't get a good basket. They still were giving up points in transition, but they finally figured it out in the second quarter and fueled a big run. Desmond Bane had 37 and was incredible in this one. Tough player, tough shot maker. What stood out to you? How did the Magic get this done?
Well, let's start with Bane because what's jumped out to me, and he wasn't, great at the beginning of the year. New team. Sometimes it takes some time to find your comfort zone. So I'm watching Bane and I'm thinking this. Last year, when Wagner or Banchero was out and they had this weird situation where they had these oblique injuries like back to back for each guy. So they went this long period of time with really only one of them. They didn't have a second guy that looked like this, that could do this when one of those guys was out. They had nobody else that you could really put it in their hands. and run your offense through. And
Yep.
Desmond Bane is cooking right now. It wasn't just last night. He's been on a roll, none more important or more impressive than what he did last night. He was the best player on the floor by a mile. And that, to me, is what I took out of this from Orlando, because their defense was mediocre beginning of the season. They look up, here we are, 25 games in or whatever we are, and they are now up to fifth. They were top 5 last year. They're fifth again. And by the way, they're within arm's reach of the second place defensive rated team. So, and by the way, real quick, just a caveat on
Nobody's
that.
catching OKC.
Oklahoma City is number 1 in the league. Listen to this. Oklahoma City is number 1 in the league in defensive rating. The
So
gap
insane.
between Oklahoma City and second place Houston, that gap is the exact same gap that exists between second place Houston and the 23rd best defensive rated team, okay? In other words, everybody's kind of bunched together. It's very, very tight, okay? And then you've got the Thunder. Anyway, that's not related to this conversation. But here's the thing. The Magic are back again, top 5. I think they could probably end up somewhere in that 3-4 range, maybe even second when it's all said and done. So the defense is back, but now they've got another dynamic element to their offense they didn't have before. So on a night when Banchero was like not great, he was okay. He had some moments in this game. It was Desmond Bane's show. They didn't have this kind of firepower before, or another guy on this caliber that you can, and not only when he's like doing stuff with the ball, off the ball, he's creating so much communication issues. It led to other stuff for people. So Bane was sensational, and it showed me they went out and they addressed the one thing they glaringly lacked. Somebody at the guard position that you could put the ball in their hands that was a threat all over the floor to take some of the pressure off of Banchero and Wagner, and they've added that to go with an elite defense. And as a result, look up and here the Orlando Magic, after some people starting to wonder beginning of the year, maybe they're not what we thought they were. They were, 1-4 out of the gate? Look up, 11-6 since, but more importantly, 8-3 in their last 11. And best news of all, Wagner's injury not nearly as serious as they thought. So he's going to be back sooner than you thought, with Bane cooking when he gets back. So the Orlando Magic, absolutely very much where at least I thought they would be at the beginning of the season, in the mix to contend in the Eastern Conference.
The Franz Wagner news is huge because we were both just convinced that was going to be something terrible. 2 to 4 weeks. I mean, very manageable. Might even in some ways be good for Paolo Banchero to get a little bit of rhythm and then bring it all together right around Christmas. So huge break for them. But Desmond Bane, legs, he had 25 in the second half. And I don't know how many of them came with 3 minutes to go in the third quarter and the first 3-4 minutes of the fourth. And there's a difference between you score 25 over the course of a period. Desmond Bane was on a heater for like a 7-8 minute stretch. That was just such a haymaker. It was shot after shot after shot, and he was screaming. I mean, he had this thing about him where he was letting him know every single time he got a bucket on him, and he was in such a zone. And I almost feel like that is more. It's tough to come back from a run like that from an individual player. Steph and Clay used to do this to you, where one guy hits 5-6 in a row on you, and it just feels somehow way worse than if it was a collective effort.
No, definitely. It's some runs are louder than others. Baines was exceptionally loud. And look, this was a team in Miami that, people have had a hard time guarding this year. They've put up surprising numbers to me. Norman Powell was exactly what that offense needed. But Desmond Bane overshadowed all of that with what he did. He had 14 points in an 8-minute stretch when this game went from basically tied to Orlando up 9. He took over the game during that stretch, and then they were able to just kind of hold them off. And he didn't stop there. He kept it going after they got to that spot. But that was the key stretch. From about the 7 to 8 minute mark of the third quarter into the beginning of the fourth quarter, that's when Orlando got the separation. And it was pretty much all Desmond Bane during that stretch. And it was a variety of ways. It was deep threes off ball screen when they went under, and he stopped at like 28 feet. He put it on the deck. He had some really soft floaters off the glass and like runners. You could see like the confidence level building with this team. And again, it's what a welcome relief for Jamal Mosley, for this group to now have this guy that can get this hot from the perimeter, because they were such an anemic perimeter scoring team last year. It just wasn't. It was doing a disservice to their defense. Their lack of shooting and perimeter threat that they had on their roster last year was a disservice to how hard they were playing on the other end. Now they've got more punch. Desmond Bane gives them more punch to go with this elite defense every night. So, yeah, man, look, this doesn't mean, hey, they're going to win it all. But the Orlando Magic, they're absolutely a team that you're going to have to deal with every night because their defense is going to keep them in games, and now they got enough offense to overcome those nights when you are able to score against them.
I would say they have that sometimes. I don't know if Bane can do this consistently enough for you to say that they have it every night. And by the way, it wasn't just him. He was 6 of 9 from 3 last night, 2 of 5 from Paolo Banchero, Wendell Carter, 2 of 3, Jalen Suggs, 3 of 8, Tristan Da Silva, 2 of 4. They collectively shot the ball extremely well, 47% from 3. And they are, I wrote this down. Let me see if I can find the stats. They are 5-1 this year when shooting 40% or better from 3. 40% is not a crazy night. A team shoots 40% legs. You don't say, oh my God, they couldn't miss tonight. 40% is just good. You had a good night shooting. When they do that, they're 5-1. And it feels that way because we know what they can do on the defensive end, especially here recently. And that was the key to me for this game. The Miami Heat spread you out and they play one-on-one trying to get downhill and then kick and move the ball. And they're really good when they collapse the defense, get you scrambling, at finding the open guy and making you pay. But the Magic are very good at not letting that happen, at guarding their guy one-on-one, and they have a bunch of defenders. And I thought this was such a great style fight. It was a lot of one-on-one defenders preventing Miami from ever getting into their rhythm outside of that first quarter, and so they could get stops. And then on the other end, if you're making shots, Miami wants to play in transition. They were on fire from 3, so Miami couldn't get the transition. But the one-on-one defense to me was the key, and we know this is the strength of the Orlando Magic. If you're a one-on-one team, Boston falls into this category to a certain extent. If you're a one-on-one team, I think the Orlando Magic are scary because they have a lot of guys that can guard one-on-one.
Hold on, though. I got to stop you in the tracks for a second because I think you said something here that kind of you got my attention.
Uh-oh.
You sounded like you're kind of like dismissing a little bit what Desmond Bane did last night and what he's doing because you said, I know you can't do that every night. It sounded like that's what. Well, over the last, I don't know what he's asked to do for you, but over the last, I think 13 games, he's averaging like 23 and a half points. And in those 13 games, 10 times he's been over 40% from the 3-point line. I don't know what more you need, how long the sample size or large the sample size needs to be for you. I mean, I think Desmond Bane has been this throughout the good majority of his career in Memphis. It was overshadowed because I think Memphis obviously had Ja, was splashy, had Jaren Jackson Jr. And in general, I think that was a team that was like almost tough to like. Like you almost rooted against them for a lot of different reasons. A lot of people did. So I think Desmond Bane now, I think he's in a healthier environment. And he's been doing it now for basically a month. And I don't know that we're going to see any precipitous drop-off. He seems like he's found
his volume.
Flow.
Yeah, but I'm talking about volume legs. Like he has 3 30-point games this year. You know, like he's a guy that's going to give you the efficiency. He's going to score. He's going to put up the 20s, in the 20s. But what I'm talking about is a guy that can carry you in a big game to 37 points. He will be able to give you that.
Wait a minute. Be fair about this, though. He's only going to be their third best player most nights when they're healthy. And as your third best guy, if you're giving me 18, to 24, like a lot of those nights, that's fine. The fact that he can dial it up to the level he did last night if a guy is off, that's what I'm talking about. Last year, if one of those guys missed time, one of their top 2 guys, well, then they had to shut you down defensively to win. There was no other way to do it, right? And that's what I'm saying. Now, at least if one of those guys is either hurt or off the floor for a stretch of a game, which they will be, they now have another guy that like you feel confident can go off. And so that's all I'm saying. Like he has given their offense like a healthy look when last year it was an unhealthy look to watch them play offensively most nights, particularly when one of those guys wasn't playing. That this is at least, I think done a large part, put a Band-Aid over that situation. And on the night they're all out there, that now you've got, to me, a lot more options for Jamal Mosley, ways to win games other than win 102-98. They don't have to necessarily do that anymore.
Yeah. I'm with you there. I do wonder about their scoring upside when teams are able to get around them defensively, because I think that is going to be a thing. You're going to have some guys score. And you know that I'm not the biggest believer in Paolo Banchero, but I have to give him a lot of credit for what I saw last night. 18 points, 5 of 13, whatever night, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 turnovers. But I thought that the problem with him, and it's not even a problem. I want to present it this way. I love his game and the upside of his game. That I feel the same way about him that I feel about Anthony Edwards, who's one of my favorite players in the league, which is the challenge for him is not the talent, the scoring, all this different stuff. He's got to finish at the rim a little bit better. He's got to finish, his jumper's got to become more efficient. But the biggest thing to me is he has to become more decisive early when he catches the ball, and he has to read the court better. There was a play at the very end of this game, legs, and the game was kind of out of reach. It was like 8-9 points with a minute to go, where he catches it at the top of the tee, at the top of the key, and he sees the double coming very slowly, and he kind of takes a dribble way out to like the logo, and then I can't remember if he took a 3 or something from it, and it's like that's the challenge for him. You're so good that you either have to go quick before the double comes and then read on the fly, or you have to learn how to manipulate the defense, because the NBA right now in this era is all about how well can you use your talents to manipulate the defense. And I just think he is starting from a low floor there. Like that's the thing that's going to unlock all of his other talents, and he struggles with it. But I think he knows that, and I think he's working on it, and I think he knows that's the player he wants to become. So I want to see that unfold. That's the story to me of his season this year, is how much better can he get at that part of the game?
All of that is fair, 100%. Now, look, not every player that is like elite at that is elite right away.
Yep.
So you can get better. And I don't know that he'll ever be elite. He can get better. He's look, he's young, but he's in his 4th year too. So that's not really an excuse anymore. I don't care that you're 23. You're in your 4th year. You've been the primary guy. Like you've got a lot of experience in navigating these situations of getting a lot of traffic and double teams and different looks because you're that good offensively. He's been dealing with that from the beginning. So I think it should be further along than it is. I completely agree with that. That is fair. And let's hope he continues to get better. What I did see last night was there are still times though that like he is such a physical advantage no matter who's in front of him because of the combination of size, power, ability to like shoot the basketball because he's got a really good stroke. His shot selection isn't always the best, but there were several plays in this game where he just went and did what he wanted to do, getting to the rim because of that size and power. You're like, man, this guy is a problem in certain matchups, certain situations, angles. He's such a tough cover. Now, if he can add that layer of anticipation.
Did we lose legs? We might have lost him. James, you might have to text him and see if he has to reboot or something. I don't know what happened here as legs is frozen on us. I think here's my thing with Banchero, though, because I know like Magic fans got really mad about this. There's only a handful of players I don't like. Paolo Banchero is not on that list. I love guys with great footwork. I love guys. He has a skill set and a toolbox that, in my opinion, is just locked up. He has more that he can give. It's just that he doesn't have like he has to learn the game. Like right now, the game is you're so able defensively to trap and to throw, overload, strong sides, play zones. And so it's so important for one-on-one players to now understand the balance and understand how to draw those doubles away and compromise. This is why we talked about it with Anthony Edwards a year ago, how I don't question his individual talent, his shot making, his one-on-one. Nobody can guard him. He has all these things. But now to fully unlock it, it's how do I apply this in a team setting in a way that always makes it work? And I think the thing that I'm trying to bring up about Paolo, it's one, that he's not good at it right now, but two, watching him play since he's come back, I think he knows this and is determined to become better at it. And I think that's what's interesting about it, about him, is you can sometimes see a player who is looking at his skill set and saying, okay, I know where I need to go and I want to get good at this. And that's why, to me, it's like a good story. It's not going to come right away. I think Paolo Banchero wants it. My other note on this game, Jalen Suggs does not look healthy to me. Another one of my favorite players. And we are having nothing but technical difficulties today, James. What is going on with us today?
Must be a full moon.
Must be a full moon or something. I'm going to go to my ugly camera now. That's the only one that'll work here. But Jalen Suggs did not look healthy to me, and I love him. He still was able to put up 20 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists. I'm kind of curious to watch him, and then see how he progresses here. And then Jonathan Isaac, his stat line doesn't jump out. 12 minutes, just 3 rebounds, 1 block, nothing else. But his defense to me was very impressive in this one. You're kind of reminded of what a big impact he can be defensively with his unique body and size. He's just an interesting piece. So this Magic team, I truly love, like, if you look at players I absolutely love, Anthony Black, Jalen Suggs, Jonathan Isaac, Tristan Da Silva, Franz Wagner, obviously, and then players that, if whether I don't love them or not, they're really good and interesting. Desmond Bane, Paolo Banchero. So they're a really interesting team, and I'm very curious to see how it goes. Apparently, Legs' power went out in Florida. That's why he lost his stream here. Is his power went out. Go figure. We just got news apparently from Shams Charania that I'll comment on. That is that Derek Lively is going to undergo season-ending right foot surgery to address a lingering discomfort. This one's so tough, man. He played 9 games. He's obviously been dealing with foot injury, foot problems. He's so unbelievably talented, and that's a Dallas team that is in flux right now as they're trying to figure out. I mean, they've had the most tumultuous 9 months of any team imaginable. Self-inflicted, of course, in large part. But now you're talking about not even getting a look at Lively. We knew this. I mean, when they were taking so much time to report what was going on and all the delay, you just knew that you can tell when a team is trying to figure out surgery, right? They're just they're waiting to make a decision. Well, that means that the decisions are all bad and they're trying to figure out what the best course of action is. But this is just a huge blow for them, because now how much do you think of Lively as your part going forward when a big man's had this much injury and misses this much time? Does it speed up or your process of what you do to AD? That's a really tough one for Dallas fans who've just been taking blow after blow for the longest little bit. We'll hope that Legs' power comes back on here in a second. But James, we might as well, with just me, and I don't even know if you have the scene set up for this. Do you have our predictions coming into the year for upside? Oh, actually, I have one last thing I want to do on this Miami Heat game. I want to take you to the locker room, because Norman Powell had a quote after the game that I think was very, very interesting. He says, "We're all on everybody's scouting report and how we play. The pace, trying to slow us down. We have to do our jobs better to make it easier for everybody else." And it begs the question, and I asked this about Toronto, have teams figured out the Miami Heat? They also were on a heater for a good portion in the middle. On a nice run, but they've lost 4 in a row. Those losses are to Dallas, who's been beating people, by the way. They have some good wins under the belt. Orlando twice, okay? But then you have one to Sacramento that you drop. And watching them play last night, they get off to that hot start. But outside of that, it does feel like teams understand if you can limit them in transition, they're going to try to get out and play just at pace and not just score on the break, but they're going to try to get the ball up quickly so that they can find mismatches and cross matches and different things. If you commit to taking that away and then you play them, you guard them, you have the bodies to be able to just keep them in front of you, then it is going to come down to how well do they shoot the 3. They shot last night 8 of 33. It was a really bad night. So I do wonder if the Miami Heat have been figured out. Legs, I just read a quote from Norman Powell after the game where he says, "We're on everybody's scouting report and how we play." And I asked this about Toronto, but I'm going to ask it about Miami too. They are a unique team. They changed their style. Maybe they caught a bunch of teams off guard, but is the scouting report on them a little bit and the things that they're trying to do?
Yeah, I think so. And I did a segment show with Zach Lowe last week, and we talked about that and how he said they were fooling people into thinking they were an elite offense, and he gave the reasons behind that. And he made some really good points. But yeah, I think to a certain extent, yes. When you look beginning of the season, their style was so different than what it had been. Their amount of punch, the early shots in the beginning of the shot clock, that's not something that they were doing. That is something that like you're not going to be prepared for necessarily when you get them early in the year. I think teams are a little bit more now prepared for the way that they play. They also went a long stretch without Tyler Hero. They kind of incorporated him back into it. That's going to change the flow of your offense a little bit as well. So they're kind of reincorporating him, getting used to like an all-star caliber player offensively, high usage rate. That's always going to be a little bit of an adjustment as well. So look, I don't necessarily think they were as good as they were in the beginning of the year offensively. I don't think they're as bad as they were last night shooting the basketball. They played an elite
They missed some
defense.
open ones.
They did. They missed some open shots, and they're going to make their share. And they also played against an elite defense with length on the perimeter. And so this, to me, was more about the Magic than it was about the Heat, I think.
All right, let's shift gears to wrap up the show today, Legs, and let's look at our Western Conference ceiling predictions for every team. And this is where we were predicting the ceiling, not what we think is going to happen, what we thought was the best case scenario. And let's just run through the list here. Golden State, we said Western Conference Finals. Boy, do they look horrible right now. And so a lot of this is injuries, obviously. I feel like they're a TBD team right now more than we know exactly what they are. But 13-12, and with the amount of adversity they faced already, I just kind of feel like this is what they're going to be this year. They're going to have a rough regular season. And even if they're good enough to make a run in the playoffs, I just can't see in a scenario where they host a playoff round, which means Western Conference Finals would mean 2 road wins in the playoffs against good teams. I might be lowering them, Legs. I think they might be able to win 1 at best in the playoffs.
I agree. I missed this one. And I agree that they're going to be better than what we're seeing right now at some point. And they're going to have to resolve the Kuminga situation. I don't know what they get back for him. It's inconceivable to me that he stays on the roster all season. So I don't know what that's going to return, what net return they get. Will that be something significant? I don't know, but I agree with you. It's at this point, the hole they're digging themselves and where they're going to have to climb out of to win 2 road games against the type of talent we're talking about at the top of the Western Conference. I can't see that happening. So yeah, we both overshot it on this one.
Because you're probably looking at having to play 2 to get to the conference finals, 2 of Lakers, Nuggets, Rockets. That's just tough, man. Winning both of those series, even those teams don't want to have to win 2 against those guys. So it's going to be tough. And we'll see. I do think they're a very good team, though. And I would not be surprised if they upset literally anybody in the Western Conference, save for Oklahoma City. But I wouldn't be surprised if they got 1 of those, but 2 of them, hard to imagine. The Lakers, you said win the NBA Finals. I said Western. I famously said, Legs, I'd never like feeling down on the Lakers because every time I feel down on them, I'm always wrong. Well, I'm going to take the L on this one. They're way better than I thought. I thought it was going to be tumultuous. They absolutely could win the NBA Finals. I'm not picking it, but their ceiling is that high, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I've got that one right. I haven't seen anything to make me really think otherwise. Look, what they've done has been pretty impressive when you look at the amount of time missed to start the year by LeBron. Luka missed time, and they're still able to do it. We've said it many times, when you have 3 guys that can manipulate a defense the way that their top 3 players can, and no one else in the league has 3 guys on that level, then you could do great things, even if your defense at times is substandard, which I think theirs is some nights. They can overcome it with elite level offense as long as they make enough threes around those guys.
The Clippers, we said second round exit. Woo! That's when I think we might not have ever in the history of this show been more off on a team. They are 6-18. They just kicked Chris Paul off of their plane, even though he's a Clippers legend. It couldn't be more of a disaster. Second round exit? Come on.
Look, when you, it's one thing to be 6-18 and we can say, okay, we missed it for whatever reason. We can dive into why. I mean, they just look completely listless defensively a lot of nights. That to me is the top of the list. But when you're kicking Hall of Famers off your plane in the middle of the night, yeah, you're probably not going to win a round in the playoffs.
Things have gotten bad in that scenario. The Phoenix Suns, we both said losing the play-in. What a cute story. You're going to make the play-in and then you're going to fall out. Legs, I don't know if they could win a playoff series, but I'm just because the West, I think, is just too tough. But I'll tell you what, they could avoid the play-in. I wouldn't be that surprised if they ended a 6 seed. I don't think they will. They'll probably be 7-8, somewhere in there. But I think their ceiling is probably 6 seed.
Yeah, and look, to do that, you're talking about then they'd have to catch either Minnesota or San Antonio, like one of those 2 teams. And I would be surprised if they were able to do, particularly Minnesota. There's still, I think, more unknown about San Antonio, but the bottom line is they can win the play-in. Like they absolutely can escape the play-in and get into a first-round series. Grab that 7 spot. It's going to be tough because you're going to end up playing probably most likely the Lakers or Denver, I would say, in that spot. So it's going to be tough. But yeah, I mean, we weren't that far off. I think, we thought they're, play-in-ish team. They probably are going to be a play-in team. But the difference is we didn't really see them being able to advance out of that. And I think both of us think now they probably could.
The Sacramento Kings, we said lose in the play-in. Right now, they are sitting 3 games outside of the 10 seed, and they just look horrible. They're probably going to start selling off parts. I just think they're a lottery team. It's not that the season is early enough that you could say they make a run and get back into the play-in and lose, and then we'd be right. But if I were projecting right now, I say they're going to be a lottery team.
Yeah, probably, but I'm not, because it's only a 3-game separation, and you're talking about teams like Portland, Memphis, who there's no telling what Memphis could end up doing. Portland, I'm not ready completely to say that they don't have a run in them at some point where now they're like kind of in the mix the entire year for like that 10 spot and then lose in the play-in. So I don't think we've completely missed it yet, but you're probably right. Most likely, just the way they look, most likely a lottery team.
Nuggets win the NBA Finals. I think that one is still right on track. I mean, Nuggets are going to be another 4 or 5 weeks without 2 of their starters, so I think they're going to look, inconsistent here over the next month. But I think their best punch this year has looked really, really good.
No, I agree. I don't necessarily need to change that. I mean, everybody kind of knows. I do think there's a separation between Oklahoma City and everybody else. But look, Oklahoma City, they've got to be fully healthy with their top guys at that time. That could be significant. You just never know. Injuries are going to play out. Denver's going to be in the mix. And if Denver's good enough to be a conference finalist team, then, okay, now here we go. They played that team to 7 games a year ago. That means if you say they could be conference finalists, then you're saying really they could get to the finals and potentially win it.
Minnesota Timberwolves, I think you might be right on this one. 2nd round exit. I said win NBA Finals because I was buying their upside a little bit more than what has come to fruition. And by the way, Rob Dillingham kind of getting passed up by Bones. Did you see Anthony Edwards' endorsement of Bones Highland the other day? That to me feels like both an endorsement of Bones Highland, which I love his skill set, but TBD on whether he's going to be able to fully unlock it, but also a little bit of like a, not that he was putting Rob Dillingham down, but you're really going to bat for Rob Dillingham's backup. And I don't know. It's just a weird thing. The endorsement that Anthony Edwards gave Bones, cool for him for pumping up his teammate, but it also kind of tells you the state of the point guard position for Minnesota.
Well, I think both guys are playing about the same amount of time, which isn't a ton, but Bones Highland's had more nights where he's contributed in a positive way. Dillingham shooting 34% from the field. I mean, he's had a very difficult time getting going. I don't know if that's going to happen for him. But it comes down to this for Minnesota. It might be 1st round exit. I mean, depending on where they end up seated, I mean, you're really going to pick them if they end up in the 6th spot, possibly even the 5 spot, but certainly 6. Are you going to pick them to beat any of a 3 seed in the first? No, you're not. No matter who that 3 seed ends up being. So 1st round exit is possible.
Totally.
But if they're able to pull that off, they're going to win 2 of those series on the road. I can't see it.
Nope. Yep. Two is just too tough, man. That's why you want to make it an easy path. Oklahoma City win NBA Finals. Nothing's changed there. We don't even have to say anything. Portland losing the play-in. I think that's probably still where they're at. They're the 10 seed, so that sounds about right. I don't know if they make it out of there. They have been actually, I would say, underwhelming relative to what I expected. I thought they'd be a little bit better. Who do we have right there? I can't even see. Oh, that's the Utah Jazz. Outside the play-in, I think this one's a lock. They're trying to be bad. Utah's going to be a lottery team.
But they're a half game out of 10, which is weird. So, who knows? I mean, a lot of that's going to depend, to me, the development of Portland, because I don't think Portland's necessarily trying to lose games, and they've got some young guys they're counting on who've taken strides. Avdi has been incredible. So I don't know if you can catch Portland, but you're sitting here, Utah, you're a half game out. Last year, this was an easy question because they clearly weren't trying to win ever. Now there's nights when they're putting up big scoring numbers and they're winning games. So I'm not exactly sure the strategy. I think when you look at Hardy coaching in the huddles, his intensity says they're trying to win more than they were last year. So I don't know. They're a half game behind Portland for the 10 spot. Who knows? We're probably going to be right, but who knows?
Here's my take on Utah. They are tanking the 2nd hardest of any team in the league right now. The Washington Wizards they're pulling off the ultimate take, 3-19. They're trying to lose and they're bad. Utah could have won a handful of these games that they haven't. They've won 8. And I almost feel like it's like, hey, we got to slow down here. What are we doing winning all these games? I think they're tanking harder than people realize. Dallas Mavericks 2nd round exit. Here's the thing about Dallas. We talked about it earlier in this week. They're actually better than the record says, 9-16. But I don't know that they're going to keep putting. We'll see. We'll see what this next month says.
I mean,
2nd round exit, definitely south of that.
And here's the thing, Adam, a lot of these teams, I think here's what we're both in agreement on. If you dig yourself a hole in the West,
Yep.
and they clearly did because of the time AD missed, Kyrie's not back. We don't know when he's coming back. If you dig yourself a hole, that means at best, right, you end up probably getting into like the 7 spot. Well, all right, go ahead. Go on the road. And now, can they beat the Lakers? Can they beat Houston? Can they beat Denver in a 7-game series at their best? I don't think so. So I think probably we're one round a little bit more gracious with them. It's probably a first-round exit would be the ceiling.
Yeah, and maybe not even that. The Houston Rockets, we said, win NBA Finals. I think we're still there, but let me ask it this way. Are you higher, lower, or the exact same on the Rockets as you were before the season began?
I'm probably a little bit lower on them than I was at the start of the year. And it's not, you know what? Actually, I shouldn't frame it that way. I think their overall chances might not be as great as I thought, even though, because if I look at their team, I'm going, yeah, it's kind of what I thought. And Reed Shepherd's even been really better than I thought he would be this year, which is a big question going into it. This is more relative, I think, to how the Lakers look than anything, than an indictment on the Rockets.
Gotcha.
And the viability of the Lakers, which makes it a little bit more difficult for Houston. I thought all along Houston or Denver was going to be the 2 or 3. Like those two teams are going to be 2-3. Lakers were going to be like 4 probably. Now, I think the Lakers have a legitimate shot to end up with the 2 seed in the Western Conference. And if that's the case, that's going to be more difficult for the Rockets to have to go on the road, probably in the second round. That's going to be tougher. So I don't know that I feel any differently about their team when I watch them. It's more like their chances, because I probably believe a little bit more in the Lakers even than I did at the start of the year.
The race for the 2 seed in the West might be the best seeding race in the NBA this year. The East, I mean, obviously we'll see what happens at the 1 seed as New York climbs, Detroit holds on, and whoever else challenges. But right now, Lakers, Nuggets, Rockets, whoever gets the 4 seed out of those ones, their odds just go down so much in that case. So that race will be very interesting, and it'll probably go all the way down to the wire. This next one's the most interesting one, the Memphis Grizzlies. We said make playoff via play-in or lose in play-in. We're both on the line. Here's my take. I think Memphis has a good team in there somewhere. They have a lot of distractions, and it's not the team that maybe you would think on paper. I think Zach Edey's interesting. I think Jalen Wells, Cedric Coward, they have so many guys that are interesting, and they might actually be good enough to be a play-in survivalist. We'll see. What do you think?
I think it all comes down to the Ja Morant factor. And is Ja Morant, number one, is he there? Which that's not going to be an easy thing necessarily to move him. Is he going to be healthy? And then finally, do you trust him in those big moments and big spots to be able to, win a couple of games and get out of the play-in? I'm going to stick with what I said, which is losing the play-in. I think that's where I'm going to stay with them.
I'm not even counting Ja Morant as the weird thing. Like I'm almost thinking about a team outside of him. But I think there's a good team in there. They've won 5 of their last 6. I'm just curious to see how it evolves. And Edey is such an interesting, dominant player. New Orleans Pelicans losing play-in, outside the play-in. I think you're going to take the win on this one, Legs. There's no way. They're 3-22. They're already eliminated, I think.
Worst team in the NBA, record-wise. I mean, take your pick, I guess, between them and Washington, who you really believe that about. But they're 3-22. No way around that. So, yeah, that's a given.
Yeah, but they have one of the 10 most fun players for me to watch this year, Derek Queen. I love watching that guy. And then you got the San Antonio Spurs, first round exit. I disagree. I think I got to raise this up. San Antonio could win a round. I don't know if they can go farther than that, but they're such an interesting team. It's not crazy for me to see them be a 6 seed and upset a Nuggets, Lakers, or Rockets. It's possible. I'm not counting on it, but upside, it's possible.
I'm gonna stick with where I'm at, and it's somewhere. It's somewhere. Both of us, if we were definitive in our answers, it's somewhere in the middle. There's a gray area between our two answers, right? That's kind of where they lie. So I'd have to then, I think, one of two things would have to happen in my mind. One, I'd have to kind of suspend some of the things I've said about these other teams that are at the top of the conference to think that San Antonio could beat them. Or I say, you know what? They're still, because of this young nucleus of guards and Wemby, the Wemby factor, maybe there's a lot more still there for them to grow this year, where they really convince us the second half of the year that they're like almost a contender in the West, and they could win around. So I'm going to stick with where I'm at for now until I see what they look like a little bit further down the road.
I'll say on the East side, on the Eastern Conference, we had a bunch that I feel like we were a little off on. On the West, you nailed it. I was off on a little bit on Minnesota. I can't remember. There's one other team in there, but for the most part, I feel like we got the West pretty accurate. Not a lot of changes.
Well, a lot of people yesterday on social media were saying with the Eastern Conference list, blue guy. They said blue guy was better.
Blue guy.
That's your list. You're the blue guy. I think if those same people are being honest, I think today, I think they'll think the red guy.
I think red guy might have won today for sure. Especially, man, some of those ones are ugly. Clippers, that's the only one we really whiffed on. But you know what? Every year we have to buy the Clippers, and every year they have to let us down. All right, we got a couple super chats, James. John says, how likely are the Lakers to win the title? As a Nuggets fan, I hope they don't really enjoy the show, guys. Thank you. We've talked a lot about that. Legs, they have a chance. Not the best chance.
I think going in, I kind of made a statement. I believe whoever wins the West will win the title. I don't think whoever comes out of the East can beat whoever survives the West and what the top of the West looks like. Although I did have a lot of praise for the Knicks and the way they looked last night, and at their best, and that's a tough team. But so the Lakers are one of those teams. Oklahoma City, Lakers, Denver, Houston. I think any of those four teams, as we sit here now, survive the Western Conference, and it's most likely going to be OKC. I don't think anybody from the East can beat them. So the Lakers are on that very short list of teams. So yes, they're in that mix, man. There's not too many teams. You say, yeah, I can believe that. I could see a parade in LA. I mean, maybe Oklahoma City has put it to a point, Adam, where a lot of people say they can't envision any other city hosting a parade besides the Thunder. But I think you've got to give some of these teams. You got Luka, LeBron, Austin Reeves. Like, you got to give a team like that a chance. Yeah. Denver, same thing with a guy like Jokic on the team, and then Houston with what they have. Those teams have a chance, and that's where it would stop for me. I still don't envision a team from the Eastern Conference winning the title this year.
What's our last one here, James? Michael Porter Truther says, more points, rebounds, assists than Lowry and KD per 75 on better true shooting percentage, 120 offensive rating on, 105 offensive rating off. Brooklyn is 6-7 in the last 13 games MPJ has played. Is he an all-star, Legs?
Oh my, you gotta be kidding me, man. Come on, man. Look, I like Michael Porter. I like Michael Porter Jr. a lot. I gave him a lot of praise. I like the move to picking up Cam Johnson for a variety of reasons. Michael Porter Jr. is a better probably individual talent than Cam Johnson. Cam Johnson, I think, was more kind of what Denver needed right now. But they're 6-17. It doesn't matter what they were in the 13 games he's played. They're 6-17, and they're going to be significantly below 500 when these selections come out. And there's just too many names I could write down on paper that are deserving on winning teams. So I think it's going to be impossible for Michael Porter Jr. to make the All-Star team.
I'm not going to go with impossible, but I would bet against it. 26 points per game is pretty good, man. I mean, I will say this. I thought he would average like 24, 23, 24, 26 and maintain basically the exact same efficiency numbers as he was last year. I think it's impressive, man. Michael Porter has been a good story, and I am curious. I have said it from early on in the season. I think a contending team should consider trading for Michael Porter. His contract is movable after, he's expiring next year, and he might be a good, for a team like Orlando right now. We just talked about how they win every time they make threes. I don't think Orlando's trading for Michael Porter, but he's the type of guy that you go in there and you add some shooting. He is as good a shooter as there is in the league and provides that spacing. So he's having a very good year.
The only thing I'll say is without trying too hard, I can list 12 or 13 people real quick that are going to make the All-Star team ahead of him in the Eastern Conference. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it is tough. All right, start that outro music there, James. Legs, good stuff, man. Do you have a quick prediction for tonight, real quick, just before we go? Suns Thunder. I mean, you got to think Thunder. They're favored by 15 points on FanDuel.
That's just stupid, man. Their numbers. Yeah, how are you going to go against the Thunder? 23-1, 11-0 at home. You got to like them. And then, I like the Lakers. Have we gotten word on Wemby?
He's not playing tonight.
not playing tonight? Does that mean at all?
They didn't say rule him out for the cup, but they did say he's not playing tonight. So maybe he comes back on Saturday. Just needs a few more days.
I can't see the Spurs beating the Lakers tonight without Wemby in LA.
Man,
setting up a Lakers Thunder semifinal.
That would be good. That would be good, man. Should be an interesting one. I'm back with Jason Timpf on Friday, and then Mark Stein on Saturday. So make sure you're connected here. And, of course, Legs will be back next Monday. Everybody, hit that like button on the way out. We'll see you.
We all silly like the mayor.